The negotiations took place in Geneva, in a building that had survived the invasion by pure luck. Minho sat across from Commander Thelrax with representatives from 40 nations watching. The air was thick with tension and unspoken threats. Minho was a diplomat who had spent 20 years negotiating trade agreements and peace treaties. Nothing in his experience prepared him for this. He was negotiating with beings from another world, aliens who had tried to conquer Earth and failed. The terms are simple, Minho said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Complete withdrawal of all Velkarn forces from Earth and our solar system. Immediate cessation of all hostile activities. Full disclosure of your technology and military capabilities, and reparations for the damage caused. Thelrax's forearms tensed. You are dictating terms to us? We still have the military advantage, do you? Minho opened a folder and slid it across the table. Our intelligence indicates your forces are operating at 30% capacity. Your soldiers are sick, exhausted, and demoralized. Your supply lines are failing. Your own civilians are demanding you end this war. You can continue fighting, but you will lose. The only question is how many more of your soldiers die before you accept reality. The commander looked at the documents, seeing his own military reports translated into human languages. The intelligence was accurate and devastating. Somehow these primitives had hacked their most secure communications. If we withdraw, what guarantee do we have that you will not pursue us? Minho leaned forward. None, because we will pursue you. A ripple of shock went through the Velkarn delegation. Thelrax stared. You cannot be serious. You barely have space-capable vessels. We did not have them 3 months ago. Now we are building them using your own technology. Every ship you abandon, every piece of equipment you leave behind, we reverse engineer and improve. In a year, we will have a fleet. In 5 years, we will have a fleet that rivals yours. Minho's expression hardened. You taught us a valuable lesson, Commander. The galaxy is not safe. There are species out there who will try to conquer us. We will never be unprepared again. Then we have created our own worst enemy. Yes, you have. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Velkarn wanted to save face, to make the withdrawal look like a strategic decision rather than a defeat. Minho refused. Earth's terms were non-negotiable. Complete surrender or continued war. On the 3rd day, a new message arrived from the Velkarn homeworld. The Supreme Overlord himself had intervened. The invasion was officially declared a strategic error. All forces would withdraw immediately. Reparations would be paid. Technology would be shared as a gesture of future cooperation. It was surrender dressed in diplomatic language, but everyone understood what it meant. The Velkarn Empire, conqueror of 47 worlds, had been defeated by humans. While diplomats finalized details, Daejin and Hana worked on humanity's future. They stood in a facility where captured alien technology was being studied and adapted. Around them, engineers worked on designs for Earth's first true warship. We cannot let this happen again, Daejin said. Next time we might not be lucky. Hana nodded, examining a holographic display. We are not just building defenses. We are building a fleet capable of protecting our entire system. If another species decides to invade, they will face us in space, not on our planet. The aliens made us into something we were not before. Warriors. Survivors. Maybe we always were. We just needed a reason to show it. Taeyang returned to Seoul after the ceasefire was announced. The city was in ruins. Buildings had collapsed. Streets were torn apart. Entire neighborhoods had been destroyed. But people were already rebuilding. They cleared rubble, salvaged materials, and worked together to restore their home. He walked through the subway station where his unit had won their first victory. Someone had placed a memorial there. Photos of the soldiers who died, flowers, and a simple inscription. They stood when standing seemed impossible. They fought when fighting seemed futile. They won when winning seemed unthinkable. Taeyang touched the memorial gently. 6 of his soldiers had died in these tunnels, but their sacrifice had shown the world that the aliens could be beaten. That single victory had sparked hope when hope was nearly dead. Minji continued her work at the medical center, now treating both human and Velkarn wounded. The aliens had requested that their injured soldiers receive medical care during the withdrawal. It was a strange feeling, saving the lives of beings who had tried to kill her. But Minji understood something important. The individual soldiers were not the enemy. They had been following orders, just like human soldiers. The real enemy was the arrogance that led the Velkarn to believe they could conquer another species without consequences. "Will they come back?" a young patient asked her one day. "I do not know," Minji answered honestly. "But if they do, we will be ready." The last Velkarn ship left Earth orbit 4 months after the invasion began. Millions watched from around the world as the vessels disappeared into the darkness of space. There was no celebration, no cheering, only quiet relief and grim determination. In the weeks that followed, humanity took stock of the cost. 3 million dead, 10 million injured, dozens of cities destroyed, economies shattered, families torn apart. The price of survival had been steep, but survival itself was the victory. Sarah worked in an archive, documenting everything. She was a historian, and she understood that future generations needed to know what happened. She interviewed survivors, collected footage, and wrote the official record of the war. Her report began with simple words. They came expecting conquest. They found resistance. They assumed we would break. We refused. This is the story of how humanity learned it was not alone in the universe, and how we ensured we would never be unprepared again. 1 year after the invasion, the first Earth warship launched from a newly constructed orbital shipyard. It was built using a combination of human and Velkarn technology, representing the best of both. More importantly, it was crewed entirely by humans who had fought in the war. They understood what was at stake. Dae-jin attended the launch ceremony. He was now director of Earth's Unified Defense Force, coordinating military efforts across all nations. The old divisions between countries had not disappeared, but the invasion had proven that humanity needed to stand together. Hana stood beside him, now chief engineer of the space program. "We are ready for the next challenge, whatever it might be. Let us hope there is no next challenge, but if there is, we will face it together." Far across the galaxy, in the capital world of the Velkarn Empire, a message was prepared and sent to all member species of the galactic community. It was a warning, encoded in every major language. This message concerns the species known as humans, originating from the planet Earth in the Sol system. An invasion of their homeworld was attempted and failed. The humans demonstrated unexpected resistance, adaptability, and refusal to surrender despite overwhelming odds. They have acquired advanced technology and are developing space-capable military forces. Approach their territory with extreme caution. Do not attempt conquest. They are not a primitive species that can be easily subjugated. They are survivors who will fight until their last breath. The message included a final note, added by Supreme Overlord Zelkoth himself. We believed them weak because their technology was inferior. We learned that strength is not measured in weapons alone. Humanity's strength lies in their absolute refusal to accept defeat. They cannot be broken because they do not know how to break. Any species that ignores this warning does so at their own peril. A beacon was placed at the edge of human space, broadcasting in thousands of languages. Its message was brief. Here lives a species that will not yield. Approach with respect or do not approach at all. In Seoul, Taeyang stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt city. The scars of war were still visible, but life had returned. People walked the streets. Children played. The world kept turning. Minji joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. "Do you think we changed?" she asked. "As a species?" Taeyang considered the question. "We were always capable of this. The war just showed us what we could do when survival was at stake. We learned we are stronger together than divided. We learned we can overcome any obstacle if we refuse to quit. And we learned we are not alone in the universe." "Yes, that too." He smiled slightly. "They wanted to conquer us. Instead, they united us. They wanted to make us afraid. Instead, they made us dangerous." High above Earth, patrol ships watched the darkness of space. Humanity had learned its lesson. They would never be caught unprepared again. The invasion had been a massive mistake for the Velkarn Empire, but it had also been a gift. It forced humanity to reach beyond their world, to become something more than they had been. The species that had once fought among themselves now stood united, looking toward the stars with determination and purpose. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a fortress, and humanity was no longer just another species. They were survivors who had faced extinction and refused to die. The galaxy would remember, and it would be cautious. Because humanity had proven something that would echo across the stars. Some species cannot be conquered. They can only be destroyed, and even destruction might not be enough. Admiral Krelvac stood before the holographic display showing Earth below. Beautiful blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Soon it would all be burning. The Supreme Overlord had approved his request. Orbital bombardment would begin in 12 hours. He felt no joy in the decision. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. Instead, it had become the Empire's greatest embarrassment. Better to destroy the planet than return home defeated. Begin moving the capital ships into bombardment positions, he ordered. Target major population centers first. When the humans see their cities burning, they will beg for mercy. On Earth, Daejin received Jiho's warning. 12 hours. They had 12 hours to stop the bombardment or watch billions die. He looked at Hana, Taiyang, and the other commanders gathered in the war room. We have one chance, he said. The flagship. If we can destroy or disable the ship coordinating the attack, we might stop the bombardment long enough to change their minds. That ship is in orbit, a general pointed out, protected by hundreds of fighters and defensive systems. How do we reach it? Hana pulled up schematics on the display. We have been retrofitting captured alien technology into our fighters. They are not perfect, but they can reach orbital altitude. Maybe. And the weapons? My EMP devices. If we can get close enough to the flagship, we can shut down its systems long enough to destroy the main bombardment weapon. Everyone understood what this meant. It was a suicide mission. The fighters would be destroyed long before reaching the target. But it was the only option. Hyunwoo stepped forward. He was a fighter pilot, one of the best Korea had ever produced. I will lead the squadron. Hyunwoo, you understand the odds? Taejin asked quietly. I understand that if we do nothing, my family dies along with everyone else. At least this way I die trying to save them. He looked around the room. I need volunteers. 20 pilots for 20 fighters. This is a one-way mission. Within an hour, they had more than 200 volunteers. Choosing only 20 was the hardest decision Hyunwoo ever made. He selected the best pilots, the ones who had survived against impossible odds, the ones who could fly anything. While pilots prepared, Jiho worked on his own plan. He had access to the Velkarn communication network. If he could broadcast footage of the war to the alien homeworld, maybe their civilians would understand what their military was doing. Maybe they would demand the war stop. It was a desperate hope, but desperation was all they had left. Yuna coordinated global resistance forces from a command center in Australia. She had been a communications officer before the war, managing satellite networks. Now she managed the entire human war effort, connecting resistance cells across 6 continents. We need simultaneous strikes on every Velkarn ground position, she explained to the commanders. When the bombardment begins, they will expect us to hide. Instead, we attack. Show them that even if they burn our world, we will never stop fighting. It was madness, attacking while being bombed from orbit. But it sent a message. Humanity would fight until nothing remained. The 12 hours passed too quickly. Hyunwoo sat in his fighter, running through final checks. The cockpit was cramped, the controls jury-rigged from alien technology. The fighter would probably shake apart before reaching the target, but he was going anyway. All pilots report ready, he said into the radio. Daejin's voice came through. You know what this means for humanity. Every one of you is a hero. We are just pilots doing our job, Hyunwoo replied. Make sure our families know we died well. The fighters launched. 20 streaks of light rising toward the sky. The aliens detected them immediately. Fighters scrambled to intercept. Defense systems locked on. The first human fighter exploded before reaching the upper atmosphere. Then the second. And the third. Hyunwoo pushed his fighter faster, dodging incoming fire through instinct more than sight. His shields took hits meant to kill him. Alarms screamed warnings. He ignored them all. Beside him, another pilot's fighter disintegrated. The pilot's last words came through the radio. Keep going. They kept going. 10 fighters made it to orbital altitude. Then 7, then 5. The alien flagship loomed ahead, massive and terrible, its bombardment weapons glowing with charging energy. They were minutes from firing on Earth. Release the EMP devices on my mark, Hyunwoo ordered. 3 more fighters fell to defensive fire. Only 2 remained. Hyunwoo and a pilot named Daehyun. They flew side by side toward certain death. Now, both fighters released their EMP payloads. The devices detonated. sending electromagnetic pulses across the flagship's hull. Shields flickered and died. Systems went dark. The bombardment weapons powered down, but the victory lasted only seconds. Backup systems activated. The shields returned. The weapons began charging again. "We need to hit the weapons directly," Daehyun said. "Ramming speed?" Hyunwoo knew what that meant. "Ramming speed. It has been an honor flying with you." "The honor is mine." Both fighters accelerated toward the flagship. Every remaining defensive weapon fired at them. Daehyun's fighter took a direct hit, erupting in flames. But momentum carried the burning wreck forward. It slammed into the bombardment array, punching through armor and detonating inside. Hyunwoo followed a second later. His fighter, shields gone and hull breached, crashed into the same point. The combined explosions ripped through the flagship's weapon systems. Secondary detonations followed as power cores overloaded. The bombardment weapon, nearly fully charged, exploded catastrophically. The blast tore through 3 decks of the flagship, killing hundreds of Velkarn crew and crippling the ship's ability to coordinate the orbital strike. Admiral Krelvax picked himself up from the deck, his ears ringing from the explosion. Damage reports flooded in. The main weapon was destroyed. Backup weapons were offline. The ship was dead in space, running on emergency power. "Sir, the other capital ships are requesting orders," an officer reported. Krelvax stared at the tactical display. Without the flagship coordinating the attack, the bombardment would be scattered and ineffective. They could still burn cities, but not efficiently enough to break human resistance. Meanwhile, on every continent, human forces launched simultaneous attacks on Velkarn positions. They came from everywhere at once, using weapons, vehicles, and bare hands. The coordination was perfect. It was as if the entire human species had become a single organism dedicated to one purpose: destroying the invaders. Jiho completed his hack during the chaos. He broadcast footage directly to the Velkarn homeworld, hours of video showing Velkarn soldiers burning cities, killing civilians, and dying in ambushes they had walked into blindly. He showed the desperate last flight of the human pilots. He showed humans fighting with broken weapons and injured bodies. Most importantly, he showed the casualty reports. Thousands of Velkarn soldiers dead, thousands more injured or sick, all against a species that was supposed to be primitive and helpless. The broadcast reached billions of Velkarn civilians. They had been told the conquest was proceeding smoothly, that casualties were minimal, that Earth would join the Empire peacefully. The truth was nothing like the propaganda. Public opinion shifted immediately. Velkarn citizens demanded answers. Why were their soldiers dying on some distant planet? Why were they fighting humans who refused to surrender? Why was the military committing genocide? The Supreme Overlord, millions of light years away, watched the crisis unfold. The invasion of Earth was supposed to demonstrate Velkarn power. Instead, it had exposed weakness. One planet, one species had humiliated the Empire. He sent a message to Admiral Krelvax. "Cease all offensive operations. Prepare to negotiate withdrawal terms." Krelvax stared at the message in disbelief. Withdrawal. Defeat. The Empire had never retreated from a conquest, but orders were orders. He opened a communication channel to Earth's military command. "This is Admiral Krelvax of the Velkarn Empire. We request immediate ceasefire negotiations." In the war room, exhausted commanders looked at each other in shock. They had stopped the bombardment. The aliens were asking for peace. Daejin took a deep breath. "Tell them we will negotiate. But the talks happen on our terms, in our territory, with our conditions." Yuna sent the response to every Velkarn ship. The message was simple but carried the weight of 3 months of desperate warfare. "You invaded our world. Now you will leave on our terms, or you will not leave at all." The war was not over, but for the first time, humanity was winning. 2 months into the war, Jiho sat in a basement surrounded by stolen computers and makeshift equipment. Before the invasion, he had been a hacker, breaking into corporate systems for money. Now he was breaking into alien communications networks to save his species. It had taken him 6 weeks to crack the Velkarn encryption. Their security was advanced, but they made a critical error. They assumed humans could not understand their technology. That assumption gave Jiho the opening he needed. His screen filled with alien text. The computer's translation software worked slowly, converting the strange symbols into Korean. What he read made his blood run cold, then gave him hope. The Velkarn were terrified. Their military reports spoke of unprecedented resistance and unacceptable casualties. Supply lines were strained. Morale was collapsing. Soldiers refused to patrol certain areas. Some units had abandoned their positions without orders. But the most revealing messages were the personal communications. Velkarn soldiers wrote home to their families, and Jiho read every word. These humans do not fight like anything we have faced before. They do not surrender when defeated. They do not retreat to regroup. They just keep coming. Even when we destroy their forces, new ones appear. It is like fighting an entire planet that refuses to die. Another message read, I have been in the military for 20 cycles. I have seen war on a dozen worlds. Nothing prepared me for this. The humans fight without honor, without rules. They use tricks and traps. They pretend to retreat, then attack from behind. They hide among civilians. They sacrifice themselves to kill just one of us. How do you fight an enemy that values victory over survival? Jiho copied everything and sent it to Daejin at military headquarters. This information was worth more than any weapon. At the same time, Sujin worked in a laboratory studying captured Velkarn equipment and biological samples. She was a biologist who had specialized in extreme environments. The military recruited her to understand the aliens on a fundamental level. What she discovered changed everything. The Velkarn were fragile, not physically weak, but environmentally vulnerable. They had evolved on a world with lower gravity, thinner atmosphere, and minimal solar radiation. Earth's environment was slowly killing them. Sujin found traces of radiation damage in tissue samples. She noticed stress markers indicating atmospheric pressure issues. Most importantly, she discovered that Earth's bacteria and viruses were attacking Velkarn immune systems. The aliens were not being killed by human weapons alone. The planet itself was fighting them. They need those environmental suits to survive here, she explained to Daejin during a video conference. Without them, they would die in hours, maybe days. Their entire invasion depends on technology keeping them alive. Daejin leaned forward, his mind racing. What happens if we damage their suits? They would be forced to retreat to their ships or die. And look at this. Sujin displayed microscope images. Their healing is slow compared to humans. A wound that would heal in days for us takes weeks for them. They cannot sustain prolonged combat. So every long battle weakens them more than it weakens us. Exactly. They were designed for quick conquests. Overwhelming force, rapid surrender, minimal casualties. They never expected to fight a species that refuses to quit. Daejin compiled all the information. Jiho's intelligence about Velkarn fear and failing morale. Sujin's data about their biological vulnerabilities. Taeyang's reports about successful guerrilla tactics. Hana's EMP weapons disrupting their technology. For the first time since the invasion began, he saw a path to victory. He called an emergency meeting with military commanders from around the world. The video conference included generals from 20 nations, all exhausted, all desperate for good news. We can win this war, Daejin began, but not by fighting the way they expect. He presented his strategy. Stop trying to hold territory. Instead, make the aliens fight for every meter. Use the environment against them. Target their supply lines and support systems. Make them chase human forces through cities, forests, swamps, and mountains. Keep them in their suits under stress, constantly fighting. We turn Earth into a trap. Every day they stay here, they get weaker. Every battle costs them more than it costs us. We do not need to destroy their entire force. We just need to make the invasion more expensive than they can afford. A Russian general spoke up. This strategy requires sacrifice. Many cities will be destroyed. Many soldiers will die. Many cities are already destroyed, Daejin replied. Many soldiers have already died. But now we have a chance to make those sacrifices mean something. Around the world, military forces changed their tactics. They stopped trying to defend fixed positions. Instead, they became fluid, attacking weak points and disappearing before the aliens could respond. They poisoned water supplies that Velkarn forces used. They collapsed buildings onto alien convoys. They used knowledge of local terrain to lead enemy units into ambushes. The aliens adapted slowly, but they did adapt. They became more cautious, moving in larger groups, checking everything for traps. This caution slowed their advance to a crawl. In Seoul, Taeyang led his unit through the ruins of what had been a shopping district. They were hunting an alien supply depot. Intelligence suggested it held water purification equipment critical for the Velkarn forces in the region. Remember, Taeyang whispered to his team. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to make them waste resources chasing us. They planted explosives around the depot and withdrew. When the charges detonated, they destroyed enough equipment to force the aliens to divert supplies from other fronts. The pursuing Velkarn forces followed Taeyang into the subway tunnels where fresh traps awaited. The pattern repeated globally. Attack, destroy, retreat. Never give the aliens a decisive battle. Never let them use their superior firepower effectively. Death by 1,000 cuts. Commander Thelrak stood on the bridge of his command ship staring at casualty reports. In 2 months he had lost more soldiers than in the previous 10 years combined. Worse, his forces were exhausted, sick, and afraid. The humans should have broken. Every calculation, every model, every piece of historical data said they should have surrendered by now. Instead, they were fighting harder than ever. He pulled up a tactical map of Earth. Red marks indicated areas under Velkarn control. Blue marks showed human resistance. 2 months ago, the map had been mostly red. Now it was mostly blue, with scattered red islands that were slowly shrinking. Sir, another supply convoy was ambushed, an officer reported. They destroyed the medical supplies we needed for the wounded in North America. Reroute supplies from the Asian front. Sir, the Asian front is already operating at minimum capacity. If we reduce supplies further, we risk a complete collapse. Thelrax felt something he had not experienced since childhood. Doubt. The invasion was failing. Slowly, painfully, but undeniably failing. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Krelvax, the fleet commander in orbit. Admiral, I need to speak with you about our situation. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, looking equally exhausted. I know what you are going to say, Commander. The answer is no. We cannot retreat. The Empire does not retreat. The Empire has never faced an enemy like this. They are primitives with crude weapons. They are survivors who refuse to die. Thelrax chose his words carefully. Admiral, every day we remain here, we lose soldiers and resources. The humans are not trying to defeat us in battle. They are trying to make the conquest too expensive to continue, and it is working. Silence stretched between them. Finally, the Admiral spoke. I will request permission to begin orbital bombardment. If we cannot conquer Earth, we will make it worthless to them too. Thelrax closed the channel feeling sick. Orbital bombardment meant burning the surface, killing billions. It was genocide. But more importantly, it was admission of defeat. The Velkarn Empire, conquerors of 47 worlds, could not handle one species of stubborn primitives. In his basement, Jiho intercepted the communication about orbital bombardment. He immediately forwarded it to military command, along with a message of his own. They are going to escalate. We need to hit them harder before they can. The morning started like any other in Seoul. Daijin sat at his desk in the underground military facility, reviewing defense protocols that everyone assumed would never be used. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he kept drinking it anyway. The work was boring, but someone had to do it. Then the alarm started. Every screen in the room turned red. Sirens blared through the concrete hallways. Daijin jumped from his chair, his heart pounding. In 15 years of military service, he had never heard these particular alarms. They were the ones reserved for the impossible. His colleague Hana burst through the door, her face pale. Turn on the news. Any channel. Daijin grabbed the remote and switched on the monitor. Every news station showed the same thing. Massive ships hung in the sky above major cities across the world. They were enormous, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships were dark and angular, blocking out the sun in places. They just floated there, silent and threatening. The phone on his desk rang. It was his commander. Get to conference room A now. The meeting room was already full when Daijin and Hana arrived. Generals, scientists, and government officials crowded around the table. Everyone looked scared, though they tried to hide it. On the main screen, a message played on repeat. It was in perfect Korean, English, Mandarin, and dozens of other languages. The voice was cold and emotionless. People of Earth, we are the Velkarn Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our territory. You have 72 hours to surrender your governments and military forces. Resistance will result in your extinction. This is your only warning. The room erupted in chaos. People shouted over each other. Some wanted to fight. Others argued for negotiation. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Daijin studied the footage of the alien ships. Something bothered him, but he could not figure out what. He raised his hand, waiting for the room to quiet down. Has anyone noticed they have not attacked yet? A general glared at him. They gave us an ultimatum. That is an attack? No, Daejin said carefully. An ultimatum is a threat. They are just sitting there, waiting. Why would a species that can cross space need to wait for us to surrender? Hana leaned forward, understanding dawning in her eyes. They are being cautious. They are not sure what we can do. That is ridiculous, another officer said. Look at those ships. They could destroy us in minutes, then why have they not? Daejin asked. Why give us 3 days? Nobody had an answer. Over the next 72 hours, the world transformed. Panic filled the streets. Some people rioted. Others prayed. Governments tried to maintain order, but fear spread like wildfire. The aliens said nothing more. Their ships simply waited. Military forces around the world prepared for war. Daejin barely slept, working with Hana and her engineering team on possible defense strategies. They had so little information about the aliens. Nobody knew what their weapons could do or what they wanted beyond conquest. On the second day, a fighter jet from the United States attempted to approach one of the alien ships. The world watched as a beam of blue light shot from the vessel and the jet exploded. The message was clear. Do not come closer. But Daejin noticed something important. The alien ship had targeted only the jet. It had not fired on the city below. Again, they showed restraint. It did not match their threatening message. They are afraid of something, he told Hana as they reviewed the footage. Afraid? Of us? Hana shook her head. Look at their technology. What could we possibly do to them? I do not know yet, but there is a reason they are being careful. The 72 hours passed. Daejin stood in the command center with hundreds of other personnel. Every screen showed different cities, all with alien ships hovering above them. The deadline had arrived. Around the world, governments had refused to surrender. Now everyone would see what choice they had made. The alien voice returned, broadcast on every frequency. You have chosen extinction. Your resistance is noted. Our forces will now begin planetary pacification. Surrender at any time to minimize casualties. The ships began to move. Smaller vessels emerged from the larger ones, descending toward the surface. They were troop carriers, Daejin realized. The aliens were not going to bomb cities from orbit. They were going to invade on the ground. Why? Hana whispered beside him. Why not just destroy everything from space? Daejin watched the carriers descend. His mind raced through possibilities. They want the planet intact. They want our resources, our world. They cannot use it if they turn it into ash. That gives us a chance, Hana said. Maybe. Or maybe it just means we die slower. The first alien troops landed in Moscow. The footage came in quickly. Soldiers in powered armor emerged from the carriers, moving in perfect formation. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with forearms and smooth gray skin visible through their helmet visors. They carried weapons that looked like rifles but glowed with strange energy. Russian forces opened fire. Bullets sparked off the alien armor and energy shields. The aliens returned fire with devastating effect. Blue beams cut through buildings and vehicles. Soldiers fell. It was a massacre, but the Russians did not run. They fell back, regrouped, and attacked again from different angles. They used the buildings for cover, forcing the aliens into close combat. The invaders advanced, but slowly. Much slower than they probably expected. Similar scenes played out in Beijing, London, New York, and Seoul. Everywhere the aliens landed, humans fought back. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they fought anyway. In Seoul, Daejin watched the reports with growing realization. The aliens were winning every battle, but they were not dominating. Their technology was superior, but they fought like machines. They followed predictable patterns. They did not adapt quickly. Humans, on the other hand, were chaos. They tried everything. When bullets failed, they tried explosives. When explosives failed, they tried ramming vehicles into alien positions. Some attempts worked. Many did not. But every failure taught them something new. We are learning, Daejin said. They are not. Hana looked at him with hope in her eyes. You think we can win? I think we can make them regret coming here. The commander approached them. Hana, your EMP project. Is it ready? She hesitated. It is experimental. I cannot guarantee it will work. We need something that works against their shields. Get it ready for field testing. As Hana hurried away, Daejin stared at the screens. The war had begun. Humanity was losing. But for the first time since the ships arrived, he felt something other than fear. He felt angry. And anger, he knew, was far more dangerous than any weapon. The alien commander studied the tactical display with growing confusion. Commander Thelrax had conquered 12 worlds before Earth. None had presented significant resistance beyond the first few days. The humans should have broken by now. They should be begging for mercy. Instead, they were getting more aggressive. On Earth, Taeyang crouched behind a destroyed bus in downtown Seoul. His Special Forces unit had been fighting for 3 days straight. They were exhausted, running low on ammunition, and completely outmatched by alien technology. None of that mattered. The orders were simple: hold the line. They are coming from the east, his second-in-command whispered. 20 soldiers, maybe more. Taeyang nodded. Fall back to the subway entrance. Exactly as we planned. His team retreated slowly, firing at the advancing aliens to keep them interested. The Velkarn soldiers followed, confident in their superior armor and weapons. They had learned that humans broke and ran when pressed hard enough. These humans seemed to be doing exactly that. They were wrong. Taeyang's unit disappeared into the subway station. The aliens paused at the entrance, scanning for traps. Their technology detected nothing dangerous. They entered the underground tunnels, moving in tight formation. The subway system was dark. Emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows. The aliens switched to thermal imaging, easily tracking the heat signatures of the retreating humans. This would be over quickly. Then the first explosive went off. The tunnel shook. Debris rained from the ceiling. The blast had not come from ahead where the humans were running. It came from behind, collapsing the entrance. The aliens were trapped. Taeyang smiled in the darkness. Now. His team had spent 2 days rigging the subway tunnels with every explosive they could find. Mines, grenades, improvised bombs made from household chemicals. The aliens had better technology, but in the confined space of the tunnels, that advantage disappeared. More explosions ripped through the subway. Aliens scrambled for cover, but there was nowhere to go. Their shields blocked the shrapnel, but the concussive force in the enclosed space overwhelmed them. Some fell. Others retreated, only to trigger more traps. Taeyang and his team used the chaos to attack from the shadows. Close-quarters combat negated the aliens' advanced weapons. A knife between armor plates worked as well as any energy weapon. The humans moved through the tunnels like ghosts, striking and vanishing. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Taeyang's unit had lost 6 soldiers. The alien battalion had lost more than 40. The survivors retreated, dragging their wounded. It was the first significant human victory. News of the subway ambush spread globally within hours. At the military facility, Daijin watched the report with satisfaction. The aliens fight like they have never faced real resistance. They expect enemies to surrender or die quickly. They do not know how to handle a long fight. Hana nodded, making adjustments to her EMP device. Then we need to make every fight a long one. She had been working non-stop since the invasion began. Her experimental electromagnetic pulse weapon was designed to disrupt electronic systems. If it worked on alien technology, it could level the battlefield. It is ready for testing, she announced. They moved to the facility's testing range, where a captured alien shield generator had been set up. The Velkarn had abandoned it during a retreat in Tokyo. It was still functional, powered by an energy source humans did not fully understand. Hana activated her device. The air crackled with electricity. The alien shield flickered, wavered, and collapsed. The entire unit went dark. It works, Daijin breathed. How many can you make? With enough resources, hundreds, maybe thousands. Then we start mass production immediately. Above Seoul, the Velkarn dropships prepared for another assault. They had learned from the subway disaster. This time they would bombard the tunnels from above before sending in ground troops. Humans could not hide underground if there was no underground left. The first dropship descended through the clouds, its weapons charging. The humans on the ground scattered, running for cover. It looked like panic. The aliens prepared to fire. Then Hana's EMP devices activated from hidden positions across the city. The electromagnetic pulse hit the dropship like an invisible hammer. Its shields vanished. Its engines sputtered. For a moment, it hung in the air, powerless. Every soldier in Seoul opened fire. Bullets that had bounced harmlessly off energy shields now tore through the unprotected hull. The dropship listed to one side, black smoke pouring from its engines. It crashed into an empty plaza, sending debris flying in every direction. The alien invasion force watched in horror as their most advanced transport burned. For the first time since arriving on Earth, they felt something they had not experienced in centuries of conquest: fear. In the medical tent near the front lines, Minji worked frantically to save wounded soldiers. She was a combat medic, trained to work under fire, but nothing had prepared her for this. The alien weapons did not just wound. They burned, vaporized tissue, caused injuries unlike anything human doctors had seen before. "We are losing him," another medic shouted. Minji rushed over, her hands steady despite her racing heart. The soldier had taken a direct hit to the chest. The wound was catastrophic. By every rule of medicine, he should already be dead. But Minji had not survived 3 days of war by following rules. She improvised, using techniques that would make her instructors horrified. She stopped the bleeding with whatever she could find. She kept his heart beating through sheer determination. 2 hours later, the soldier was stable. He would live. Word spread quickly through the ranks. The medic who refused to let anyone die. Soldiers fought harder knowing she was there. If they fell, Minji would bring them back. She became a symbol of human resilience. On the 4th day, the aliens attacked the medical tent directly. They had learned that destroying human morale was as important as destroying human forces. The tent had minimal protection, only a few guards. Minji heard the explosions outside. Wounded soldiers tried to get up to fight, but they could barely move. She grabbed a rifle from a dead guard and took position at the entrance. "I am not losing anyone today," she said quietly. The aliens came in force. Minji fired until her rifle clicked empty, then grabbed another. She was not a soldier. She had barely passed basic training. But she stood her ground. Other medics joined her. Wounded soldiers who could stand grabbed weapons. They turned the medical tent into a fortress. The aliens expected easy targets. Instead, they found people who would rather die than abandon their wounded. The attack failed. The aliens retreated, leaving more bodies behind. Minji collapsed, shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. Around her, everyone was alive. Everyone she had saved was still breathing. Commander Thelrax reviewed the day's reports with growing dread. 47 planets, 47 successful conquests. Earth was supposed to be number 48. Instead, it was becoming a nightmare. The humans had inferior technology. They had no unified command structure. Many of their nations had been fighting each other until the invasion began. By every logical measure, they should have collapsed within days. Instead, they adapted. They learned. They found weaknesses in Velkarn tactics and exploited them ruthlessly. When they could not win directly, they used ambushes, traps, and guerrilla warfare. They turned their own cities into death traps for invading forces. Worst of all, they did not break. Every defeated unit regrouped and attacked again. Every failed strategy led to a new approach. The humans fought with a desperation and creativity that the Velkarn had never encountered. Thelrax sent an encrypted message to the fleet command, requesting additional forces. "Human resistance is significantly stronger than anticipated. We need reinforcements to maintain the invasion schedule." The response came quickly. "Reinforcements denied. Current forces are sufficient. Complete the invasion within 1 standard cycle or face review." Thelrax stared at the message. Complete the invasion. As if it were that simple. As if the humans would simply give up because the Velkarn said so. For the first time in his military career, Commander Thelrax wondered if he had made a terrible mistake.